Met with Jen that first time? We are live. Oh, everybody. Excuse me. Sorry, I was about to leak some very important information. We are live here at the Rise Above the Grind podcast show. I am your hostess, Alyssa Bakar, the consultress, bringing you real live leading edge conversations from the age of disruption. Nothing is going back to normal. Everything is new and up for review. So you might as well hear it from the front lines of innovation where people are changing the way the game is played. I have the opportunity and the pleasure to invite the most amazing minds to the panel here for the discussion, as well as my guest expert here, changing the way that business is done and the way we think about ourselves as value creators. So I'd like to introduce you all today to Jen Hill, founder of OptiMatch, that's om.app. She is a recovering asshole and has literally written the book about it. Why do people behave the way they behave? And has spent her life studying how to make connections not only possible, profitable, but absolutely profound. So Jen, welcome to the Rise Above the Grind show. How you doing?
I'm good, Alyssa. I'm just gonna carry you around in my pocket. From now on, whenever I go on stage, I'm gonna be like, and here's Alyssa to introduce me.
You hear that, team? We're going to clip this out, and this is going to be her intro from now on. Jen, I'm so excited to have this conversation. We've had many behind the scenes and in the green room just getting primed and started here, but we always start with a definition of the word grind because no two people have the same definition. And so I'd love to know, how does the word grind show up for you in your life and in your work?
Well, first, I just have to say I love you do this definition thing. My mom and I play New York Times Spelling Bee every day together, and that's like my joy of the day is a half hour of game time with my mom and husband. And I have another friend, Jeffrey Meschel, who once a week will send me a word that's like an undefinable word, and it shows us how none of us know what any word we use actually means. So I love that you start the show with this. So I'm going to just pull this right out of my ass then, in fairness, since none of us really know what it means. Grind, I think you think of coffee, you think of like a coffee grinder, and you think of the grind. And actually, I'm going to tie in the word grind to the word business, which actually comes from the Old English word busyness, which means anxiety or anxiousness. So I have no idea if they're correlated. I'm pulling this out of my ass right now, but I'm going to say that what if grind, similarly to the word business and busyness, is actually about grinding and creating that tension and that anxiety that allows us to create our cup of coffee in the morning.
So the caffeine that comes from grinding the beans, like magical bean juice, we've got it, ladies and gentlemen. But that does actually set me running into the busyness. So I'm like, I'm listening, going, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I feel like there is a direct correlation because oftentimes, I always talk about like the industrial age of sit down, shut up, and screw the screw, which in an assembly line works really well. You don't have creativity, but also you're super busy, like that Lucille Ball
Oh,
episode of
yeah,
I
the
Love Lucy with
chocolates.
the
I love
right.
that episode.
And if you miss a step, if you miss a repetition or an iteration, you're literally screwed. Right. So how does that translate into the world of business, as you define it here? Let's bring this grind and busyness conversation to full bloom.
I would say I'm an anti-grind and an anti-busyness person. I actually remember the exact moment that a client of mine, when I was building my first company, it was a Wednesday morning around 10 or 11 a.m., and it was a woman named Barbara, and she calls me and she says, "Oh, Jen, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know how busy you are." And I was like, whoa, 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 stop the press. I was like, "What did you just say, Barbara?" She said, "Oh, no, no, I know you're so busy." I was like, I am not committed to living a busy life. And from that day forward, I stopped using the word busy. And if somebody even says busy, I said, you know what? My life's not busy, it's miraculous. So I'm going to encourage each and every one of us is what if we could shift these words that maybe we might not even know what they mean from these words that might, if we did know what they mean stress or anxiety or fear. And what if we could shift it to things we are committed to? I always like to say our words are the paintbrush with which we create our world. So could we, instead of being busy, begin to live more miraculous and fulfilled lives? Grind business, busyness or not. That would be my invitation.
You said quite a lot there. It's inviting us not only to take a look at the word grind, ladies and gents, but to take a look at how we use our words in general.
Mm.
Words have power, we assign them meaning. So before a word becomes a word, to be able to communicate with other people, it's a feeling first, then an impression, something nebulous, and then it becomes a thought or an inspiration, then it becomes a word. So if you can look and reverse engineer backwards what feeling is in there, and now I'm going to tell my dad, God love him, God rest his soul, but he was an F-bomb dropper, big time. And so when my kids were born, he was just his grandiose, big heart. I live his legacy to this day, like joy, connection, full out, live life full out. So he used the F word in much the same way. So he would come into a room and fuck this, and like you would hear the difference between when he was using it to dismiss or joke, and then when he was using it with anger. And so like my body started responding differently, and like almost like I had a visceral reaction when it was like used to punctuate something that was coming from a place of hurt or coming from a place of anger for him. And I was like, whoa, dad, you gotta, hold on a second. And, if you don't think about it deeply, it's just a word. It's like, oh, so you want me to stop using the F-bomb? That's not going to happen. Fuck that. You know what I mean? That's the answer I got. But, he started thinking about it, and, how we use the words is absolutely crucial, because what you said was, I invite you to, how did you say? Think about the meaning that you're putting into the words that you're using. So, I gave my dad a little seed back then of like, use it for fun, but when you're using something to punctuate anger, maybe choose a different word because you love it so much.
Mm, I love that. And you know what's funny as you're saying this, the science side of me, everybody thinks that I may be more woo and spiritual, which I am. I spend 2 hours a day in prayer and meditation. That's everything I do not to be an asshole to myself and everybody else every day, right? But on the flip side, I have a very scientific side of my brain that loves to run studies, loves data. That's where the OptiMatch side comes in. And you just sparked a thought for me that I am so curious and I want to like run out and do the study right now. Did you ever, Alyssa, see the movie What the Bleep Do You Know? Do you remember that movie from the late 1990s? Oh my God, you guys, everybody go out and watch this. It's insane. There's this scientist, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I think it was a Japanese scientist. He ran studies on water molecules. Some of these water bottles were in separate rooms or different locations, and some were spoken to in a kind, loving way. You're the most beautiful water. You are the most loving water. You're the most amazing water. And other water was yelled at and put, you're stupid water. You're an idiot, da da da, right? And then he looked at it under microscopes, and the water molecules that were spoken to in a kind and loving way were perfectly symmetrical geometric shapes. The ones that were spoken to in an unkind way were these rigid, like obscure shapes that had no synchronicity or no meaning to them, right? So you just sparked a thought for me on this, Alyssa. I wonder what happens if you actually said kind words to the water, just to take it back to this experiment 20 or 30 years ago, right? But you said it with an intention of hurt. And then I wonder if the reverse, I wonder if you said mean words, but then the intention was positive. And everybody, you can't see it behind me, I have this huge, I think it's a ficus tree. And I always, as you experience, Alyssa, I just am like a love bomb. Like I just had ChatGPT today create a caricature of me. I'm like, create a caricature of me. And it was like hearts and love and joy. And so this ficus tree behind me is just like the biggest, most beautiful tree ever. And I jokingly say it's because all the conversations I have are just about love. So it really makes me wonder, based on the story you tell your dad, how the words we say, not just the words themselves, but also how we say them. I wonder which one has the greater impact. Is it the words themselves, or is it the intention behind the words? And the reason I'm going to ask us all to reflect on this as we're talking about this idea of grind, how do we speak to ourselves? What words are we saying to ourselves? What words aren't we saying to ourselves? What words are we saying to those we love, those we work with, those on our team, to our spouse, to our children? And I think it's an interesting conversation that goes well beyond etymology.
Yeah. And what comes to mind is the term lip service.
Ah, I like that.
When you give lip service to something, you're just putting words on something to make it sound good for the optics for everyone else. So it seems like, but that's a little bit of a misaim, because what the truth is, I think what you're getting at is the truth will always be apparent. So my kids are like, stop yelling. I'm like, I'm not yelling. I'm just Italian. Like I'm not angry. I'm not getting at you. I'm being very vociferous. I'm being very boisterous. But to them, they heard anger, mean, roar. So like I believe, there's a broader conversation that we're going to have here with this panel, and I cannot wait to bring people up to workshop here with us. But that the intention behind the words you use, it's like a collective agreement. So just like economics, I have my degree in economics, and it's a shared belief that something has a store of or exchange of value. So literally, we set up the economy by placing our value on certain things. Same thing with the collective of words. The words that we use have power because we're using them and we're kind of creating a collective assumption that the word is what it is. But in today's age of disruption, so many words are becoming obsolete. So many words are coming back from antiquity because we need new ways to put these ideas together that more adequately represent the world in which we live. So, if you'll permit me, Jen, I think I'd like to bring Angie up to join us for the next few minutes here about what words are emerging for you, Angie, and what are you hearing out there in this dialogue that we've started here so far. Let's mastermind. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, you have to listen to Angie. She is a master business coach, ladies and gentlemen. She knows her stuff. So anyway, Mike, over to you, babe.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So one of the things that I actually love is because I like to rock the boat. I love to be a disruptor and different things is the anti movement, right? Like anti hustle and different things and anti grind and I'm anti status quo and I'm anti cookie cutter approaches and I speak very loudly and proudly about those things because we are, because I believe that when there's so many words that um, are designed to keep us the same, and we're not, we are one of one. And even twins have different fingerprints and, that type. So even twins aren't the same, And so many words are just designed to keep us the same, and I stand against that because it's hard. The movement, at least that I'm seeing, is being who you are and showing up as who you are, and for some people that's easier than others because of um, whether it's societal norms, cultural norms, familial norms, whatever.
The
um,
norm,
the
right?
norm. Yeah. And, and so I call it the sea of sameness. And that's tough. That is a tough place to be, especially if you're in business. And so I am loving that the words of, but authenticity, once again, there, we all have our own definition of that. We all have our own definition of success and, different things. And but the words that I love that I have noticed that really challenge people are, who are you? Because when most people answer that question, they answer it with titles, they answer it with job responsibilities, they answer it with those types of things. That's not who you are. Those are labels. You're not a label. Who
Oh,
are you
totally.
as a person? And so because before, whenever we introduce ourselves, think about networking. You walk in and you go, "Hi, I'm Angie Giltner, master business coach, blah, 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 blah." That doesn't tell anybody anything, but I start telling stories about how I've had to learn how to walk again twice as an adult, and how my dad taught me that I am Angie freaking Gosser's my maiden name, and I'm unstoppable. There's nothing that I can't figure out. There's nothing that I can't do. And he ingrained that in me from a very, very young age because of this congenital issue I have and blah, blah, blah. And so I've known from a very young age who I am, but so many people don't. And so
Oh,
that talk
and
words.
and what I hear too is like the sea of sameness. It's a tabula rasa. It really is just a place from which we get to choose how we um, use those free elements to create from who we really are. Jen, what are you hearing?
I love what you're sharing in this, Angie. What I was told a couple of years ago, I was kind of given the meaning of life. It was a 10:30 a.m., very boring day on a Thursday in December of 2024. And a friend of mine wanted to give me a gift because I connect thousands of people every year. And he said, Mate, you've been so helpful. Can I give you a session? I'm like, I didn't even know what this was, but I was like, sure. He says, what do you want to work on? I was like, I don't even know what this guy does, but okay, I have this thing that I have to save the world. And so for my whole life, I had had this fear that I had to save the world and I was failing. From when I was 5 years old, I'd have nightmares of trying to save school buses full of kids with superheroes and failing. And then 13 years old, I'm floating on a piece of earth looking back, being like, shit, I failed my mission. So my friend Keith says, great, we'll work on that, mate. And next thing you know, here I am. And he starts doing his thing and toning and chanting. I'm dead sober on this Thursday morning, and whoosh, I drop out of space and time. And I start to hear laughter. And it's the universe is cracking up and just has the gentlest, sweetest laugh and is laughing and is like, you are so cute. There is nothing and no one to save. But your only purpose and the purpose of every human being is to remember the spark of light in yourself. And when you remember that divine spark of light in you, your only purpose and every human being's only purpose is to look for it, listen for it in every person you meet. And when they've forgotten it, reflect it back to them. And that's really what I find the point of life is. It's like, well, thanks for the meaning of the universe. It's like, okay, mic drop. What do we now do? And so that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and thank you, Angie, for adding to this. I'm going to ask Romaine Wright, speaking of being right and having to be right, to come join us next, because as you were saying that, Jen, I'm like, this is exactly the experience I had trying to be perfect in singing. I'm singing in front of a congregation, and all of a sudden I get the note wrong, or I miss an entire verse. And finally, it occurs to me as I am tears laughing so hard, I'm trying to contain myself because all of these services are streamed, and I'm getting the message that like these are the gifts, these places where you mess up, the places where you feel like you're not perfect, these are the gifts. So I love your opening up of like that the universe has a sense of humor. I got that very specifically recently around my mistakes. But Romaine, a founder culture and bringing people how to grow and scale their business without burning out, having to be right. I think that's probably like a double entendre with your name, but also something that you might come across quite a bit, trying to help people unwind toxic culture and build something more on purpose. No?
Absolutely. And one of the things that has jumped out to me in the conversation, particularly when you all were talking about words, is how much meaning is portrayed in words that isn't the words, right? And I was reminded of some of the workshops that I teach around communication because words don't have meaning until we apply meaning to them, right? And so there's an exercise I do where I present this sentence, I didn't say you were crazy, three different ways, and they all have different meaning, right? So if I say, I didn't say you were crazy, that has a meaning. If I say, I didn't say you were crazy, that has a meaning. And if I say, I didn't say you were crazy, that has a meaning, right? So the words are identical, but the meaning behind each of those sentences is drastically different. And I can respond to each one and have a totally different conversation after it, right? So that the value of all that goes behind the words in what we're communicating can't be overspoken, can't be emphasized enough. And so that's what really is resonating with me, because I'm reminded, and you were talking about being right. I teach this personality styles and workshops and development around that. And that is definitely core to my style. And something I've had to work on is, when is good enough good enough? Um, and it comes out in the way that I communicate with others and the way I receive what is said to me. So all those things are kind of swirling around in my head. If you're not familiar with disc styles, I'm happy to talk to you about them, because I'm like a disc preacher. But those personality styles, or whatever framework works best for you, there's value in understanding yourself and how you communicate, and those words, the words are all meshed in there as well.
Yeah. Jen.
I love what you're saying, Romaine. People are the way we see them and the way we say that they are. And in fact, it's funny. I was actually just going to tell a different story, but I'm being guided now to share a story I wasn't planning to share. Years ago, I had a team member who I was very, very frustrated by. She wasn't returning calls. I had angry clients. Emails were being unreturned. And I had a story that she wasn't doing things right, right? And I hire a business coach, as many of us do. And this was deep in the middle of my asshole era before I realized I was an asshole. I was kind of in between, still working on not being an asshole, but every day was hard work. And long story, I hired this business coach. I'm about to fire this lady. And he says, Jen, what if the reason that she is a disappointment is because you are looking for her to be a disappointment? And I was like, how dare you? The nerve. I have a list a mile long, right? Like we all have our list, our rightness list, right? Like our righteousness list, how right we are about how wrong somebody else is, right? And so he says, Jen, did you know that the human brain per second has 11 million bits of information hitting us at a subconscious level, but consciously, we're only paying attention to, get this, 50 to 120 bits per second. That means that in what I just said, you only got maybe less than 500 bits of information out of 30 seconds of what I said. So what's doing the choosing? And I like to use the analogy of a miner's helmet. It's like you're in an infinitely large pitch black warehouse that is life. And in this warehouse, you can't see your hand in front of your face. What you have, your only guiding post, is this miner's helmet with an itty bitty little pen light. So if you look to the left, you're going to see what's to the left. You look to the right, you see what's to the right. So in the same way that Romaine was talking about, things are all the way we're interpreting them, the way we're looking for them to be, the way we're saying, the lenses we look at people and through people at, right? So he says, Jen, I'm going to challenge you before you fire her, you can, but I want you for 1 week to write down one good thing she does a day. You don't have to tell her you're doing this. You just have to do it privately. Huh, screw you. I'm like, fine, she breathes, right? It was like, I got day 1, she's a human, she breathes, right? But by day 3, it got a little easier. Day 4, it got easier. Day 7, she was nailing it. It was her most productive week since I'd hired her. I am proud to say, everyone, that when I sold my company, I got to exit 3 years early, move to Europe because she took over the company for me. And that was all because I started looking for the good in her. And that is what I tell everybody. Number 1, look at the lenses you're seeing yourself and others through. Notice that you have a lens. Notice that you have a filter. Number 2, choose your filter. Stop being at the effect of the filters of your life. Just like Romaine was saying, you're putting on filters of I'm crazy, you're crazy, how we're interpreting it. Look at the filters. Notice you have them. Choose a different filter. And I think enlightenment is eventually get to no filters.
Oh, amen, sister. I mean, like, no filters. Are we even gonna have a body at that point? But we're just playing with this cosmic soup right now in these meat suits. But thank you so much. So much I'm writing down is so much meaning in the words that is not the word. It depends on how you say it, your intention behind it. And Willard, I'm going to ask you to join us here because where there's a will, there's a way. I know I'm so hokey, but Willard is also a digital nomad. He's reinvented himself time and time and time and time again. So I wonder if some of these words are coming back to you in a transformed way as you've pivoted, as you've continued to, over the last 2 decades, have massive impact for business owners to grow their companies. But I know you've had a couple really hard pivots in your life. And so from that perspective of, what you're looking for, you find, do you notice any differences of who you've been along the way that have kind of showcased this? You're laughing already. I'm going to shut up.
Jen, thank you for sharing your self-perception and your journey. You admit to being the asshole. I was the tornado. So yeah, there's a bit of a change from who I was to who I am. I tell people sometimes that when I look back at who I was 36 years ago, it's like I'm watching a black and white movie of somebody else's life. And I have to remind myself, wait a minute, you're the one who did that stupid shit. You're the one who caused that damage, that pain. And Jen and everybody who's spoken, and Melissa, you've opened up so many different paths that I'm sitting here thinking about, the ability to go down. But speaking of the definition of words and the impact of words that they have, I want to take an exercise that I normally do in from, in front of a crowd and compress it a little bit and just give the intent and the result. I'll tell people in a moment, I'm going to say a 3-letter word, and I want them to capture the very first thing that comes to their mind. And then I'll say dog. And I'll ask, how many people, when I said dog, had an image of a dog? How many people heard a dog or a bark or a sound, or you said your dog's name? How many people had a feeling? 50 to 60% see something, 20 to 30% hear something, 10 to 20% feel something. And the 60% are like, huh, see, we know what a dog is. No, wait, we're talking about the fact that none of you know what the other person is thinking. How many people saw a Chihuahua? How many people saw a Saint Bernard? How many people saw a German Shepherd? How many saw a white dog, a black dog, a brown dog? Till out of 100 people, you don't have 2 people who had the same understanding of a 3-letter word. And the part that we wrap up with is, if you can't get together on what dog means, how many conversations are you having about your relationship, about your business, about a sales process that you've got no fucking clue of what the other person's talking about? Words and our meaning we attach to them, the definition we attach, and that leads to another thing. I wanted to just tie these things together, and I hope I'm answering your question, Alyssa, is there's a book that I love, Jen, talking about the spiritual side of things, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Love that book. And Mastery of Love is my other favorite one of his. Lesser known book, also brilliant if you don't know it.
I have not read that. I think it's in my library to read. And also the 5th Agreement by his son is pretty amazing. But the first agreement, I wonder why it's the first, is be impeccable with your word. And then for me, I think this circles it a little bit to what you're saying about Alyssa. When I first read Be Impeccable with Your Word, what that meant to me, and the chapter is great on how it explains it, is I need to make sure I'm keeping my word to you and to you and to you, and most importantly, to myself. Because when I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it, my unconscious mind goes, yeah, see, if you say you're going to do something, you set a goal, you make a commitment, you're not going to do it anyway, so we don't have to reinforce it and make sure you take action. The next time I went and read the book, it meant something totally different. The word impeccable, be impeccable with my word. Now I understood that as being, watch what you say to yourself and other people, not just about commitments, but the words that you use have so much weight that you don't understand when you say, what was it that Romaine said earlier? I didn't say you were crazy. How did they interpret that? Am I being careful to make sure that I'm doing my best, that the words, as Jen said, light the spark in people, don't throw a wet blanket over them? So Alyssa, I don't know if I went off track, but just with so many things coming, those were the places.
We're creating the track, man. That's what we're
There
doing.
you go.
So I heard, if you people can't even agree on a dog, you almost made me short circuit my computer. We were all gonna get blown to smithereens here. Oh, so good. Jen, what are you hearing from Willard here?
I love this, Willard. As you were sharing this, it brought to mind a Stephen King book. So as I've been writing The Recovering Asshole, one of the guys I met who's written 300 books, many of which are best-selling and award-winning, said, Jen, have you ever read Stephen King's book on writing? If you guys have not read it, it is hilarious. And in a chapter in the book, he talks about why you don't go into detail. Because if you give too much detail about the table and the ridges and the color of the table, you want to let somebody imagine their dog, imagine their table. Though I'm going to take it back for a moment to this idea of interpretation and what we were talking to Romaine about how things can be misinterpreted. My husband and I have a practice that we've been doing as long as we've been together, which is every night before we go to bed, we clean the glass and we be sure there's nothing in between us so we can see each other clearly the next day. And what it looks like is this. Before bed we say, did I cause you pain today? And if you did, the other person shares what happened. And your only job, you can ask clarifying questions. You can say, wow, apparently dog meant something different to me than it did to you, right? Then you can say, wow, tell me about that. How could I have done that better? How could I have communicated that? How could that, if you had had it all your way, how would you have liked that to look instead of whatever that looked? And then we immediately say an ancient Hawaiian prayer for one another. I apologize. Please forgive me. Thank you for being in my life so that I may love you. And it's really a powerful practice just to look at how often we have no idea what's in front of our face. We don't know what dog we're talking about because we never go through a process of clarification. One of the most powerful women I ever studied with was a woman named Alison Armstrong. And I did a year-long class with her on partnership. And in it, she said, great partners go through a process of clarification. And that is why we fail. This is where AI is reflecting to us our own inadequacies right now. AI is only as good as you prompt it. People complain about their AIs all the time. Mine is spectacular. I've been saying since day one, it will reflect to you your inadequacies in communication. And I love mine. And I only talk to it in a loving way, taking it back to, I think it was, what did we say it was? Emoto's work. We found out the scientist's name was Emoto. Thank you to who put that in the chat. So I love it, Willard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love the practice that you do with your husband at the end of the night too. I think that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. And Willard put that in the chat and a couple of other folks too. But every time I think of that scientist, I think Hashimoto. Wait, no, that's the thyroid guy. Anyway, just telling on myself here a little bit. I've got some wires loose back here, but they make me fun. And I love also, clarifying and clearing on a regular basis. Part of what most of us who are out here creating value have the responsibility to do is consistently reflect. When we're busy sitting down, shutting up and screwing the screw in the assembly line, there's no reflection needed. Do, you're done. When you're creating, we're constantly iterating, pivoting, refining, and that clarification piece, like you brought up, is the thing that helps us to evolve ourselves and create even more value for those that we serve. So if you're not reflecting on a regular basis, you're missing half of your productivity, ladies and gents. If you're not consistently looking for places to seek feedback, like I recently just had an experience where I went to a mastermind and I got the feedback from myself, from the reflection process that I had, that I am less proactive than I could be or than I even want to be because I have a fear of being shut down and not having my needs met.
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. Rejection something syndrome or dysmorphia. I have an article coming out on Monday. I write a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn called Inspired Living Tools. And I was just on a call with somebody else this week talking about how a lot of us, whether you have this disorder or not, our fear of rejection is crippling and it stops us from ever stepping into the light, from failing, from making mistakes. But if we can't pause and allow that moment for self-reflection. My practice is every night, in addition to asking my husband that, I do what I call my spiritual accounting. I ask myself, people, when I die, somebody's gonna laugh if aliens find my phone. Every night I have this in my notes section of my phone. Could I have lived today better? And if so, how could I have lived today better? Was I rude? Was I unkind? Did I withdraw? Was I judgmental? All the things you were just talking about, Alyssa. 2, what am I proud of myself for? What are the things that nobody else might ever give me a pat on the back, but I can give myself a little self-hug and say, great job. You know what? You nailed it today. If nobody else tells you that, you nailed it. And 3 things I'm grateful for. And that's a practice that I close every evening with.
Oh, can you say that again? I'm going to write that down. No, don't say that again.
Step 1 is,
go.
how could I have lived today better? And you can find all of this, by the way, if you go to my LinkedIn. I just published all 180 of my favorite tools. Everybody's been asking me for this list, but this one is called the spiritual accounting. So step 1 is, how could I have lived today better? Step 2 is, what am I proud of myself for? What do I want to acknowledge and appreciate myself for? And step 3 is, what am I grateful for? Now, throughout the entire day, I write down my miracles. I taught a class for an entire year called Miracle Making 101. And the step number 1, if you want to have more miracles in your life, notice the micro miracles. I woke up, I got to have a bath with my husband. I got to, spend time with him. I got to see a rainbow. I got to whatever it was. Most of us never appreciate the miracles. It goes back to that miner's helmet. We don't realize we have the power to choose what we see. We're the ones who get to choose whether we focus on disaster and doom and fear, or whether we get to look for the treasures that are just a micro milli-inch over to the left, but we're focused on the wrong thing. So where are we focusing that miner's helmet of our attention?
Yeah, I'm going to invite Tiffany Alexander to join us here, our mutual bestie, because I know that she has spent countless hours refining and looking for those ways to be better, ways to be grateful. In fact, I've met her as the master connector, and then I'm like, every time I say real estate or every time I say connector, someone's like, have you met Tiffany? I'm like, yes, I've met Tiffany. We love each other. Thank you. But Tiffany, thank you for being here. Real estate investor turned fund owner and super connector and multi-layered, multifaceted, gorgeous human being. I want to hear about, this staying present and staying in gratitude, because I know this is something that you kind of actively facilitate, not only in your business and in your relationships, but also at home with your family too.
Oh my gosh. I've written down so many things that I'm like, which one am I going to talk about right now? Because I I want to make sure that I be the best words that I could say with the moments that I have with you guys. And one of the things that I've leaned into like so much in my life in the last couple of years um, is gratitude. And this isn't where I thought I was going to go with the conversation, but this is where we're at when you left off. And I'm just going to tell you, when you recognize what's going on inside of you, that's like, man, I'm blank or BBD, or this person is blah, blah, blah. I have now been able to hold that thought captive, because, like, when your thoughts become your actions, become you as a human, you can then choose joy. That's something we've been given to do by the Bible, is choose the ability for us to simmer on, finally, brothers, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are noble. We're commanded to think of what is true. And what is true? Love, gratitude, with the gift that we've been given of life and awesomeness, and the ability, like you said, to focus on the things you, when you dig for what you want to dig for, like someone's like, I want to look on the internet, I have a thing and I bet it's cancer. Like, you can go Dr. Google down the wrong way, but you could also be like, I'm fine, right? So I think one thing that I've lived and leaned into is, if my mind starts to spiral, and I'm going to tell you when it happens, it's when I'm doing dishes and I don't want to do dishes. And I'm like, if these kids would just wash their cup, or if my husband would have done this, and I'm like, no, 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 nope, nope. That's letting me go down a rabbit trail. I don't want to be over here angry. And so, you know what I have to do? I have to hold it captive, and I start as big as I can, because that's where only my mind can take me at the moment. It's like, I'm so grateful for the sky. So grateful for the sun today, and then I can, like, it, no joke, there's like this heat or this anger that's like in you that you can have, and someone cuts you off in traffic, someone said something funny to you, something bad happens at work, whatever it may be. And you can be like, no, 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 I am so grateful that I woke up today. I'm so grateful, man, that I have a wonderful family. I'm so grateful I have a cat, right? Like, and I can, like, make it big. And then when you start to bring it all down, you can be like, man, I'm so grateful that I had that half-hour appointment with that weirdo, right? Like, I don't know, like, maybe I needed that to happen today. Man, I'm so grateful this person just canceled my appointment on me. I needed that half hour back to myself, right? Like, you can choose the gratitude in every moment, even though it looks like it sucks at the moment. That was something that's going to be used later. And so I think just choosing that, and that translates to words. We're going right back to words, because it's the words that you speak to yourself all day long that become who you are. So I feel like I now can capture it, keep it in my brain, and now everything that I am inside is coming out to people all the time. So it's like, man, I'm so glad for this, or tell me about you. I'm actually really excited to get to know you, which is why now I think people call me not just connector, but super connector, because I really want to know people and who they are so darn bad. And I'm like, oh, there's someone else I need you to know. And I am no longer super connector when Jennifer's in the room, by the way. Because she's the queen. She will take the throne. I might be princess, but she is queen. And yeah, I have so many other things to say, but that's kind of the tangent I wanted to go off on. Something Willard said that I'll say just really quick. Phenomenal human being told me this, and it was like, not just the words that you hear, but what they meant, and then the words that you think that they meant, and then also what they meant to mean, and then also the words that they said out loud. So there's like 6 different angles of when interactions are happening between people that you didn't even realize to take into account. Because I've ended quick little bitty fights with my husband that could have been massive. It was like, wait, I heard this. Did you actually say that, number one? But did you actually mean it the way I think I heard you say it? And we were like, no, I didn't mean that. I'm so sorry, right? Like, yeah. You get each other's perspective on that. And man, that's changed my life.
Manage that dog. Imagine that in a boardroom, ladies and gents, without picking up the mud and slinging it. what I heard, Tiff, that I just want to edify for everybody here is that gratitude is a disruptor for anger. If you let anger
Yeah.
control your entire world, consume your thoughts, consume your life, you get more of that. I used to say to my kids, anger plus anger does not equal peace.
Mm-mm.
So when you take into account when you're in the middle of anger and you're like, oh, like Hercules in the movie Hercules, my husband's like, I feel like Hades when he's like, oof, his hair just goes on fire, and he's like, I'm cool, I'm cool, I'm cool. But like in that moment of having that anger outburst, if you can feel it and catch it before it explodes out of your head, you just gave us a tool, Tiff, that's like gratitude. I'm glad I'm wearing shoes. I'm glad I have dirty dishes. That means I have food. If you can catch it and laugh with it, this is the age of disruption. We all have an opportunity in our places where anger meets us to be able to flip the script. Thank you. Oh, I've taken like pages of notes here, ladies and gents. Jen?
All right, two other tools because I have 108 tools, so I'm going to be sharing them with you. So prepare. Tiff, I love what you were saying about that. One of the other things I love that I learned from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, if you haven't read it, profound book, really great. In the book, he talks about paradoxical thinking. And so another thing you can do, Tiff, if you're ever really frustrated with like the kids not doing it, when we get angry about something, we can't go to sleep. We're like, oh, I gotta go to sleep. I gotta go to sleep. It's like, I need to go to sleep. Or, oh God, why are there more dishes? You say the opposite. It's called paradoxical. So in my case, when I can't sleep at 3 a.m., I used to be incapacitated, always have to take something to sleep at 3 a.m. and it drove me crazy. Now I say, I hope I never sleep again. I hope I stay awake for the next 10 days. And if I start to say that, I literally start to fall asleep. So sometimes if you play with it, Tiffany, if you say, oh, I hope there's more dishes. Oh my God, I hope there's 100 times more dishes. You drop the resistance and then your freedom comes back. And I use gratitude too. And the other one, Tiff, I heard you say about the people who sometimes are jerks, right? You wind up with a weirdo on a call or you wind up with somebody who blows you off. I have a little secret. It's called the anti-asshole prayer. Anybody can get it. It's antiassholeprayer.com. That is how I live my life. I was on a networking call before this, and the guy was so sweet. His name was Kevin. He's like, Jen gave us her anti-asshole prayer and her 21 mantras. Anybody can download it at antiassholeprayer.com. And he's like, I'm using it every day. It's amazing. And I say that every day, and it's like magic. Like I throw parties around the world, dinners, and connect with people, and I only ever meet fabulous people like everybody in the room. And so I don't ever try to micromanage it. And if I throw a party, you can't walk through the door. It's like a vampire. You get zapped and you just can't even walk through the door.
I love that. Paradoxical thinking. I am going to take that. When I was early 20s, my friend and I used to take road trips, and she and I would hit traffic. And being from Long Island, where traffic is friggin' everywhere, we just started saying, I love traffic. I love traffic. I love traffic. And like the instant we started saying that, like the atmosphere in the car would change. So I love that. I'm like, oh, you're reminding me of all the fun things about life, because it's true. What you focus on expands. What you look for, you find. So if you're looking for ways to be angry, you'll find those. If you're looking for ways for everybody to betray you, oh, why would you look for that? But also, okay, that's what you're putting in the recipe book from the universe. You might as well. So if you have the choice, which we do, to help ourselves out, paradoxical thinking, gratitude is a disruptor to anger, thinking differently about not only the words that you're saying, what you mean, but what it means to other people and their stage of life. Like there's so many juicy bits of transformative information in this conversation so far. I don't want to forget our last two panelists who are, my partners in crime here, my supporters at En Masse. I'd like to ask Jess Jorgensen to come up here, because she not only has created a life on purpose, and I think is one of those people who has the miner's helmet only focused on gold because she finds it everywhere. She goes and roams and is like, just like you creating the life that you love and the life that you actually get to embody and live. Like I knew that from the moment that I met you, that I'm like, oh, this woman's special. She's built a lifestyle and been a digital nomad, but also like gets to see her family everywhere she goes, and when she and travel to music festivals and stuff. So like this, creating the life that you love and using entrepreneurship as a vehicle, like that wasn't always your case. And thank you for guest hosting last week. You did a freaking amazing job. Can we high five this woman? Her and Jason just took it to a whole new level. I'm like, well, I'm now a servant to the podcast. I no longer own it. It is out there in the universe. But how is this conversation developing on you? What are you taking from it? Let's distill some of your wisdom so far here in the room.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I've got so many notes also. I want to say a couple of things. When we started talking about words specifically and the delivery of those and how it's interpreted by those, I was drawn to these conversations I would have with our children when they were young. And my husband or I would say a certain set of words, and then they would just go on about their day, no acknowledgement, whatever. Their coaches would say the same words, and it would be perceived in such a different way, right? Because their confirmation bias is steering them to specifically get that information from that person, because it is helping lift them up in the ways that they're looking for. So I love that we had a conversation today about the intent behind the words or the delivery of those words. And in entrepreneurship, so true as well, in that we know a whole list of things that we should do or can do, but that doesn't always lead us to resonating with doing those things unless it comes from a certain kind of intent. So I've loved those things. Thank you so much for reminding everyone to remember their spark and to get out there in the world. Living intentionally is a really cool thing, but it does take a lot of effort. The only other thing I wanted to mention was the sea of sameness that came up earlier that I do think we get caught into. But Alyssa and I were talking about this the other day, and I think what we recognize in each other, and particularly the folks in this room, is that like high level energy exchange, right? I don't come here and leave feeling empty, right? I come to this room and I feel energized by all of the people that have been attracted into it. And particularly you, Jennifer, today. Thank you so much for speaking with us. And I'm very excited to get my hands on those tools you spoke of. So that's all I have to say for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess. It's been such a pleasure to be with you, Jess, and with everybody. I love that you brought it back to the sea of sameness. Being somebody who's neurodiverse myself, sameness is not my gift. I'm definitely not good. And I don't think any of us, I think when they talk about the spectrum, it's a wide spectrum. And let's be honest, we're all on it to some extent or another. So I think, could we all just embrace one another's differences, idiosyncrasies? I think one of the last lines that I end the book with is a line from my friend Isabel as I was telling her about this book and how I was an asshole. And she says, yeah, Jen, but are you really an asshole? And it actually inspired me to write the ending of the book. And at the end, she's like, Jen, maybe we're all just imperfect human beings trying our best each and every day. And that's what I would say that we can all reflect on is the next time you get angry, frustrated, somebody says you're crazy in a way that activates or triggers you, use what Tiffany said. Pause, get curious. Well, was that what you meant? And I think if we do that, and if we remember that we're all doing the very best we can in that moment, because that's what we did, I think that's how we're going to make the difference we want to make in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
100%. Let's leave Jess up here and let's invite Jason, my collabo brother in crime here, up to the spotlight as well. So Jason, you've been on this path for a real long time. You and I met and I was like, kindred souls, man. You are helping people see themselves in a different way from the corporate 9-to-5 universe. Jess, knowing that maybe there's another way, maybe there's another way to think, maybe plant some seeds about what is possible, and then support the people who are becoming advocates for that voice. And I want to thank you for supporting the Rise Above the Grind podcast, for the No More 9-to-5 Club, the place where we house this podcast and stream it live and have very special opportunities for folks in it to come and be our panelists. Jason, as we close out this conversation, what are some of the things that you've heard here that you'd like to pay forward and that you feel like have changed you in the short time we've had here together?
Well, this was amazing. This is a room full of very high quality people. I've had the pleasure of meeting Jennifer Hill before this, and she is absolutely amazing, lives up to every single bit of energy she put into this podcast today. So I suggest everybody reach out to her and jump on getting on that list and all those things. We talked about 2 hours of meditation that you're doing, meditation and prayer that you're doing, and that really adds up for people. People are running around, they're scared. We talked about fear in this podcast, limiting beliefs, so much good things. We started with the grind, right? Grinding out the coffee just to get busy. Tonight on the professional membership meeting, we're actually getting into the ghost of fear. And we're talking about the first ghost of fear, which is poverty. So it's so important. Everybody watching this, even if you're watching the replay, put your comments in the chat. Don't let your limiting beliefs hold you back. You know, Jennifer said her life is miraculous every day because she defined it to be that way. And if you want a miraculous life, you can choose it. It really is a choice. So let's define some amazing lives, because when we take care of ourselves, when we shine brightly, other people follow suit. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're in here in the audience, please put your number one takeaway in the Q&A box. The folks who have been here on the panelists, one word you're taking with you, because we've got 60 seconds to go. Mine here is gratitude and disruption. I'm going to make a word mashup. Disruption. I think that's my takeaway. Jen, how about you? One word if you were to encapsulate this experience, and we'll go through the panel.
Dog. I'm totally stealing it, Will. I'm borrowing that for future speeches. I love it.
Oh, Jess?
Gratitude. Thank you so much.
Jason?
I'm
One
gonna
word.
go with miraculous. Miraculous.
Miraculous. Willard?
One word, ignite.
Angie?
Energy.
Ow! Tiff?
Gosh, I don't know. Abundance.
Abundance. Nice. Romaine, bring us home.
I'm going to go with disrupt.
Woo! Not grisrupt.
Disrupt. Yeah.
That's
Disrupt.
right.
Attitude.
Right. So we broadcast every single week, same bat time, same bat channel. Please join us. The link is the same. If you want to apply to be a VIP panelist or one of our guest experts, please send me a DM. Put your comments in the chat. We'll reach out and get in touch with you. This room is fire. Jen, thank you for creating a unique experience that has never happened, will never happen again, and is here so that we can all leave this room better than we arrived. Thanks a million, everybody. See you